Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Allie's Book Nook. Today I'm going to share with you my thoughts, spoiler free, on the 11 books that I read in the month of February 2026. So, some quick stats. I read 11 books, as I just said. That's 3,569 pages. So, same amount of books as January. January I read 11 books, but less pages. January I read 4,499 pages, February 3,569. But it was a shorter month. So my average time to finish a book was 5 days in February. 100% of the books I read were fiction. I finished all of them. Out of the 11 that I read, 2 were only physical form. 2 were only audio, and 7 were done with audio and physical as well. And I didn't have any ebooks this month. Well, I started a book as an ebook, but then finished it as a hard copy, which I will talk about here. My top genres were in this order: thriller, sci-fi, horror, mystery, middle grade, children's, literary, historical, and my average rating was 4.3 stars. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about, not in the order I read, and then I'll go in the order I read, but I just wanted to talk about this book first because I was so excited to receive a copy of this book and read it, and that is Home by Ben Young. So Ben Young is an indie horror author, and him and his wife Lauren have a channel, and that is called The Youngs and the Restless. And it is a booktube channel where they talk all things bookish. Highly recommend them. That's how I found him. And actually, I don't know, let's see here. I'm trying to not ramble here too much, but I found his books on Kindle and Amazon. So I started reading a Kindle ebook of his. And then there was a comment on his channel that he made that I've received comments that a lot of people or viewers are reading my books. If you guys are interested, let me know and I can send you a book plate, a signed book plate. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And so I commented and I'm like, I'm actually reading the ebook right now, but I do prefer hard copies. So at some point I plan on getting the hard copy at home, but please send me a book plate. And so he didn't send me a book plate. He sent me a whole signed copy. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And some swag with it. So let me show you guys here. All right. So Home, and we have it signed in here. To Allie with deepest sympathies, Ben Young. P.S. Thanks for reading and watching. And then an autograph from Cowboy. So Cowboy is a character in the book. He is a little greyhound dog. And so that was so cool. And then the swag I got, a little card for their YouTube channel, Youngs and the Restless. A card with his website on the back, Ben Young Stories, but the front is a business card for a character in the book Home. And it says, Minnick Family Funeral Home. Lloyd Minnick, Funeral Director, 432 Asher Street, Oak Hollow, Ohio. And that'll make sense if you read the book. And so will this sticker. This says, Minnick Family Funeral Home, Employee of the Month, Cowboy. And yeah, he's so cute. In the book, he is a greyhound with one floppy ear. And so that was cool. And I was like halfway through reading the book when I got this stuff. And so I was worried about Cowboy's fate when I was currently reading it at that point. And then this gave me hope, like, okay, if they made a sticker of Cowboy, hopefully he's gonna make it. So let's talk about this book. So I read this in ebook until I received the paperback, and then I promptly switched to the paperback. This was self-published, I believe, by Ben Young in 2024. It's 323 pages. And when I got it on Kindle, I had credits, and so it was like 74 cents. with my credits, but I think it's like $4 normally. And his books, because I got another one of his books this month, and it was like $15 on Amazon for the hard copy. So they're reasonable. You can also get a signed copy on his website, but it looks like they don't ship to where I live. And those are like 20. So anyway, still pretty reasonable. So, okay, this book it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. And I'm not just saying that because, kind of the personal connection that I had with it and watching the couple through YouTube. I thought this was a genuinely good book. So, this is a story about there's this town in Ohio that's kind of just seen better days. It's kind of a dying town, and there's this haunted house in the town. Well, it's not haunted, okay. There's this old abandoned house in the town that kind of has legends of being a haunted house. There's like tours that go by there and show people, and there's kind of, these myths about this house, but it's just an old abandoned house. So one day, a funeral home business pops up in the house, seemingly out of nowhere. And then people in the town start dying and going to this funeral home. And something is not right. And the funeral director is this old guy named Lloyd Minnick. Hopefully I'm saying his name right, his last name. And there's something very off about him as well. And so we're following different characters in the book, some who survive, some who don't. And there's also a character named Walter, and he has this dog named Cowboy. And Walter is like one of the few people that knows that something's not right. So he is going to go investigate and try to find out what's really going on here. So it says, death can invade any home. The town of Oak Hollow, Ohio is dying. I'm just going to read you this. It's not that long. Jobs are scarce, crime is rampant, and the authorities aren't helping. But when the infamous haunted house on Asher Street is quickly converted to a funeral home, it appears something has come to pick clean the bones of this once proud Midwestern town. Who is Lloyd Minnick? Can his kindly offer of free funeral services be trusted? If you were given the chance to speak to a deceased loved one, would you take it? What if all it cost you was a little bit of your time? Yeah, so let's see. What did I write about this? So I thought it was a great story. I thought the pacing was right on track. I like how the sections were broken up, telling the perspectives from different characters in the story. I thought he had great word choice. Very, did a really good job building out the story. So the way that, okay, he definitely has his own unique writing style, but the way that he wrote, and this is my first book I've read of his, this book reminded me of elements from John Marrs, who is not a horror author. He's a thriller primarily author, but definitely had remind me a little bit of John Marrs' writing style, as well as a little bit of Joe Hill. The character in here kind of reminded me of what is his name? Charlie. The character in Nas 4A2 reminded me a little bit of him. I mean, they're totally different characters, but I love that book. And so that was kind of fun to just, my perception, reminded me of both of those authors, which are very strong authors. I think he's very talented. I just watch for him because I feel like he's up and coming, but I feel like there's no reason why he wouldn't hit it big as an author and be able to just go mainstream, because this was really good. And I guess I've only read this one book, but yeah, it was really good. And I like how the ending, I really like the ending, how it wrapped back around to the beginning, and it just wrapped everything up from when you first started reading it. I thought that was really clever. So I definitely want to read more of his. In reading about the author, or no, I think it was in the acknowledgments, they acknowledged a Greyhound rescue organization, and in the book, Cowboy is a Greyhound rescue, and so that made me think that maybe they maybe they have a greyhound or had one or something, but Cowboy, I loved him. He was such a good boy. Very endearing character, and gave a little bit of, lightheartedness to the story because it is creepy. There is a couple scenes, but one in particular that, for better or worse, is going to stick with me for a long time. So I'm not going to say it spoiler free, but go out, buy this book. It's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, and you can get it online through their website. And again, their YouTube channel is called Youngs and the Restless, and Lauren and Ben are the couple who run the channel. So, and Lauren and I have very similar tastes in books, and Ben, he reads a lot of horror books too, and they talk about all that on there. So anyway, great book, highly recommend. Oh, so 5 stars overall. I gave it 5 for characters, plot story, and overall readability. I gave it a 4.75. I guess if I had to pick a criticism, this is so petty. I guess I would say that the chapters aren't numbered. But they're still broken, because I like it when it's easy to follow back and forth through audio. But for one, I didn't read it on audio, but I think listen to it. I think it would still be easy to, because of how they're titled. And so they go by, like, it'll start out like on a day of the week, or it starts out the house, and then it'll say like Tuesday, and it'll kind of give you little mini spoilers in the chapter headings. Catherine Finds is like one of the first ones. So you kind of know what's going to happen, maybe have an idea, which I didn't mind that. So I don't know. I guess if I had to pick a criticism, it would maybe be that the chapters weren't numbered, but that's so petty and doesn't really take away from the ease of following it tandem. So I don't know. Probably just sound like I'm, fangirl mode, ranting or, raving about it because of how I got the book and all that, but it was genuinely a really good book. So highly recommend that. We'll be reading more of his. Already picked up Stuck, which is like a claustrophobic caving book, and really excited to read that. So I'll probably be talking about that in March reading wrap up. Okay, so moving on, the next book that I read in February is a children's book, and that is called Shiloh by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. And I read this with my kids. This is my copy from when, no, it's not. I picked this up used several years ago, but I had this same copy when I was a kid, like same cover illustration. There's been a few different ones. This was one of my favorite books as a kid, and so I was really happy to share it with my kids. So it's about a boy named Marty who lives in the South and comes across this dog named, he names the dog Shiloh after the bridge where he found him, but he's owned by their neighbor Judd Travers, who is a bad guy, and he is abusive to his animals and all that. And so Marty takes Shiloh in secret, and his family says he can't have him, can't have a dog, and drama ensues. So really good. I remember as a kid, I've probably read this book like 10 times, and I remember just like crying my eyes out as a kid. And really, isn't that what makes a book great, when you get that emotional about it? So we read this in paperback. It's published by Anthem children/juvenile fiction. It actually came out in 1991, September 30th, 1991. 144 pages. I think I paid about $5 for this used. It took us a while to read it because we were just reading it like for a bedtime story. So we started it on January 1st and we didn't finish it till a month later, February 2nd. But I basically already told you what it was about. It was a great book. Like I said, I've read it many times and was happy to share this with my kids. It won the Newbery Medal in 1992. There is a sequel to it. There's a movie and a TV series. We watched the movie afterwards. Of course, it wasn't as good, but it's on Amazon Prime, and it followed the book fairly closely. So I gave this 5 stars for everything: character, plot, readability, and overall. But as an adult, I would give it 4.5. It's still a good story as an adult, but obviously it's more targeted towards children. And so it's just, at that reading level. But this book holds a dear place in my heart for many years. It always will. Okay. The next book was... I had high hopes for, and I still really enjoyed it, but it was not my favorite Darcy Coates book, and that is Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. So I read this in paperback and audio. It's published by Poison Pen. It's a horror book, but horror / thriller. I'd say this was more thriller, and that was probably where my qualm with it was. It was published in 2023. It's 341 pages. I don't know how long it is on audio. I didn't write that down. Probably like 10 hours or so at 1.0 speed. I got this hard copy on my birthday from my dad. So I've had it sitting here since October, but I was waiting to read it until we had snowy weather, and we never really had winter around here. It's really sad, actually. So I just read it before winter was over. But it's also free through my Libby Audio. So I started it on January 31st and I finished it on February 3rd. So this book is like, what do you call it? Like a not closed room, but like, I don't know. It's like an isolated, I would consider it a thriller book. It's about this group of, I guess, tourists who are going to go stay at this lodge in the Rocky Mountains, and their bus breaks down, so they have to go hike into this like little cabin that they find, and then people start dying off one by one. And yeah, so it definitely read more thriller than horror, and I read this immediately coming off of From Below by Darcy Coates. From Below, which right there. That's one of my favorite books like ever. And so I love that book so much. And so I guess, I was coming off of that high and hoping to reach it again. And that was a lot to live up to. And this didn't live up to it, but I did still give it a 4.25 stars overall. So, Darcy Coates is an Australian author, and I love her. She's one of my favorite authors. She is an auto-buy author for me. But she's from Australia, and so this book taking place in the Rocky Mountains in the U.S., there were a few words in there that the characters who are American were using that we would not use. Like holiday for vacation. Some stuff was in meters. And even like the characters that were from Texas were talking like this. I can't read that word, but I can't read some of these words. Mobile for a cell phone, that type of thing. My handwriting's horrible. So it says that it's set in the Rocky Mountains close to the Canadian border. And that made me like wonder / kind of hope that it was maybe set in Montana where I am. So I was kind of picturing that in my mind, but it doesn't actually say. So yeah, it's a good story, but it's more thriller and I wanted more horror. I will say that I did not guess the twist at the end. So that's good. This is my 6th Darcy Coates book, and my least favorite of hers so far. I also have read and absolutely loved her Black Winter series here, these 4 books. Those are amazing. From Below was amazing. And so this wasn't bad. It's just, hard to live up to that. So I do plan on reading more of her books. I have some on my shelf that I haven't read yet. So it was gory. This definitely had some gore, but still in true Darcy Coates fashion from the books I've read, there was no like sexual scenes or cursing, just the gore. And so that's one thing that I really love and appreciate about her is she has that talent where a book can be scary and enthralling and not have to have any vulgarity in it. I guess it could be argued if the gore is vulgar or not. I mean, like, it's not like this would be a PG movie or anything, but I just really think that shows a level of talent that is really admirable. Okay, so yeah, definitely want to read more of her backlist this year. I gave this a 4.25 overall, as I said. I finished this book journal this month, and it is literally falling apart. Plot story 4.5, readability 4.75, and overall rating 4.25. So I would recommend that one. So the next books I read are actually a series, and I did a YouTube short on them right after I read them because I was on fire after I read these. I was just like, oh my gosh, these are so good. So if you just want a short and sweet under 3-minute like rundown of these books, go check out the short on, but that is Blake Crouch, the Wayward Pines series. So there are 3 books in this series. And this is like a sci-fi dystopian type book. So I have a book bingo card that my neighbor made for me of 100 squares, and this one I filled in the square of a trilogy. So the first book in the series is called Pines. The second one is The Last Town, and the third one is Wayward. So I'll start with Pines, the first book. They're all published by Pan Macmillan. This one was published in 2012. It's 294 pages or 9 hours on audio. I paid basically $10 for this. So it was $30 for the trilogy. I actually had the first book, but to buy the second and third separate would have been more expensive than to just buy the whole trilogy with matching covers. So I'm going to donate the other one that I had. But I actually ended up paying for this on Audible, $15. I think I must have used a credit that I had on Audible. I started it on 2.3 and I finished it on 2.5. So it only took me a couple of days to read this. But I loved this book so much. I loved this whole series so much. So good. Like I said in the short that I did right after, I mean, this felt like a fever dream reading this book. So basically this series, I should say, it's like all one story. And I don't want to give away too much, but I can't, especially with the second and third. But yeah, basically this takes place in a town called Wayward Pines, Idaho. And there is a Secret Service agent named Ethan Burke. And he's sent there because 2 of his colleagues went there a month ago and they totally went off the radar. They disappeared. So he's sent there to go find them. Well, he wakes up in a hospital and he doesn't remember anything at first. He doesn't know where his wallet is, where his ID is, where his cell phone is. He doesn't like have any personal possessions, and it turns out he was in an accident and he doesn't remember stuff. But as he goes into the town, he realizes that something is very, very wrong with this town. It seems like really idealistic and kind of like Leave It to Beaver, like perfect idealistic town at first, but then it's like something's not right here. It's too perfect, and he can't communicate with anywhere outside the town. The phones don't work, and there is an electric fence going all around the town. So what is going on here? What are they trying to keep out or keep in? Like, you just get this feeling of dread, like something is not right here. And that continues on into the second and third books. So I said that I loved this book. This first one had 2 mentions of my hometown in it. That was awesome. Creepy, atmospheric, kind of reminded me of Twilight Zone, X-Files, Erie, Indiana, those kind of shows. And actually, I don't remember if I read it in the back of this or if I saw it in an interview with Blake Crouch, but he said he was inspired by Twin Peaks, if you guys remember that show. Very, very fast pace. There were really no slow parts in this series. I didn't feel like there was anything really that was just unneeded. It was just all like meat and potatoes, like everything served a purpose in the story. I felt like this series was less science-y than some of his other books. I've also read Recursion, that was more science-y, and even Dark Matter had more, a little bit heavier on the science. This didn't have that, and I really liked that. You don't have to really know anything about the science world to appreciate this book. So that was really nice for a layman like me. But I said it was really high tension. I gave this 5+ stars for all categories: character, plot, readability, overall. This is my third, fourth, and fifth book of Blake Crouch's, and I want to read all of his books. He's basically going to be like an auto-buy author for me too. And I think I have like 2 of his other books that I have on my shelf that I need to read still. But yeah. So that was the first one, Pines. Like I said, I can't say a lot about the rest of these because it's all like one story, but this is The Last Town. This came out 2 years later in 2014, 333 pages, 9 hours. This was free to listen to through Libby, but I got it in that same box set, the physical copy. And this took me from February 5th to February 9th. So just a few days to read this. 2 more mentions of my hometown in this book. It picks up right where the second book left off. Action-packed. You do meet more characters. There's a little bit more world building. And I didn't see the twist coming at the end of this one, but I said I can't wait to read the last book in this series. So this was 5+ stars all across the board as well. And then the last one is Wayward to finish out the trilogy. Let me turn my little page here. Wait a minute. I got those mixed up. Okay. Everything I just said, I was talking about Wayward. That's the second one. Okay, sorry. The last one is called The Last Town. And paperback and audio. I was actually got this through a 2-for-1 sale that Audible had a while back. And this came out in 2014. So let's see here. The last 2 books both came out in 2014. 302 pages. This took me 1 day from February 9th to February 10th. And it's a final book in the trilogy, which was sad. It takes place 3 weeks after the first book starts. So it's a, quick period of time for these. Again, they mention my hometown, which that doesn't happen very much in books. This one criticism is the chapters weren't numbered. So that did make it harder to follow along. They are like named. Each chapter is named by the character. So I didn't really like that because that did make it harder to read in tandem. But I guess it didn't affect my reading of this book. I said it was, I would have liked to dig into more details and have this go longer, like bigger books. I don't think the story necessarily need to be continued, but just more details within the story overall. It was a great wrap up to the series, but the epilogue was a huge cliffhanger. Huge cliffhanger. Okay, I do want to see it go on, but I don't think it's going to happen. At this point, it's been 12 years since this one was published. He definitely could make another book after that cliffhanger, like maybe a whole other series, but I don't think he will, but I want him to. A girl can dream. So I said I love this series. I wish it was longer. I think this is my new favorite Blake Crouch story. It is. I'm going to count this as one story because that's what it is. I read the whole series in 7 days and it's 929 pages. I consumed it. I read and listened to it. It's almost 1,000 pages, but it went by so fast. Oh my gosh, this was just so freaking good. This is one of my favorite reads of the year so far. I liked it. Can you tell? Okay. The next book I have to talk about is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This is my all-time favorite book, guys. I love this book so much. It's such a beautiful book. And my book club, which has been on a hiatus for about a year, decided to start up again. It's through the local library, and the first book that they chose was The Great Alone. And so I just read my copy, and I was very happy to do so. So I read this in paperback and audio. It's written by Kristen Hanna, published by St. Martin's Griffin. Historical fiction, came out in 2018. It's 549 pages or 15 hours on audio. I paid $2 for the hard copy at Goodwill, and then previously I had like listened to it through Libby, but it was too long of a hold with the book club timeline, and so this time I just purchased it with an Audible credit, $14.95. It was worth it to me because this is a book that I treasure and I will listen to again. So basically this takes place in the 1970s, and Alaska, 1974. So there is it's a family. It's a girl named, is it Lenny, right? Lenny. There's a girl named Lenny, and it's her and her parents, and they have a very toxic relationship. Her dad is a Vietnam veteran, and he has severe PTSD. He was a POW, and he's never received the help for it that he should have. And so he takes that out on his family and his wife, and it's very dysfunctional. But they are kind of always like looking for the next best place to start over. So they end up in Alaska in the 70s, which is kind of like when the pipeline was starting up and stuff like that. And they end up in a very remote village on the Kenai Peninsula. And they actually, so Lenny and her mom, you know, they love their dad, but he has his issues, and so they're dealing with that, and then they're also dealing with the extreme conditions and the extreme isolation in Alaska. And I actually lived in Alaska for a couple years. That's where I met my husband, and we were married in Alaska. So I only lived there for a short amount of time, but I really feel like this book did a good job representing Alaska with the landscape that's described, some of the unique Alaskan lingo that they use. I think I might have wrote some of it down. So this was narrated by Julie Whalen, who I said was a great narrator. I need to write more legibly. I said this was so happy. It made me feel so happy, and it was just so comforting to go back and reread this. It was like getting a big warm hug from an old friend that you haven't seen in a while. I actually read this for the first time last year in January 2025, and it became my favorite book ever. So I think this is one that I could go back and read every year, and I just would fall in love with it over and over again. Very vivid imagery of Alaska, right down to the mosquitoes. But some of the words that the lingo, Alaska lingo is like bunny boots, termination dust, ulu, breakup, the slope, doll sheep, some of the landmarks they describe. It just brought it all back for me. So this was still just as amazing as the first time. It still hit just as hard as the first time, even though I knew what was going to happen. There were a couple things I forgot because I have a really bad memory, but I really loved it. So I give this 5+++ stars, all the way across 5+. Yeah, love it. Favorite Kristen Hanna book. I've read like 4 of her books, and she's another one of my favorite authors, but that's her best work, in my opinion, that I've read. And it was interesting when I went to the book club because there was very mixed views on it. There's people like me who just like love that book. Well, I don't know if anyone loved it as much as I did, but there were people that really did not like that book. And there was a guy there that had lived in Alaska for 20 years, so much longer than me. And he said he didn't feel like it did a good job representing Alaska, or veterans or anything like that. And so, you know, that's what's so great about book club is everyone can read the same book and have such a different experience. So that was really cool to listen to some of their criticisms. And then actually I was like, I can kind of see, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, I can see where some people thought like, oh, this book is just like depressing and stuff. And I can see that. So it was good to get that other perspective coming from someone who basically thinks that book can do no wrong. But I understand where they're coming from on some things. So the next book I read is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And this hit my book bingo for a book about space. Now, is it really about space? I don't know, but it takes place in space. So I'm going to count that on my book bingo. I read this in paperback and audio, primarily audio, because I was reading the Ben Young book while I was listening to this. And it took me a while to get through Ben's book because I was only doing the physical copy and it's harder to make time to read. But when I can do stuff with audio, I get through them a lot quicker. But this is published by Ballantine Books in 2021. It's a sci-fi book, 476 pages or 16 hours on audio. I paid $2 for this at Goodwill, and I did end up purchasing it for $7 on Audible. Well, $7.50 I guess it came out to. So this was when they were having a 2-for-1 credits. I got The Last Town and Project Hail Mary. So I started this on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, and I finished it on 2/20. So it took me a week. And again, probably because I did read some of it, but I primarily listened to it. Everyone says this is such a good audiobook. I think it probably won like best audiobook of the year. Was it? I don't know who that was through, Goodreads or what, but it was a good audio. It was good narration. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would or wanted to. So this story is about and the movie's coming out later this month, so I am going to the movie. But it's about this guy who he was like a pretty renowned scientist. He wrote a paper that people didn't agree with, and so he got a lot of criticism, and he's like, I'm over this. I'm just going to go teach kids and just live a simple life. So he becomes a teacher. Well, then some stuff happens, and it says, Ryland Grace is a sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and Earth itself will perish. So yeah, basically, something happens, and we find out that Earth isn't going to survive unless their only hope is to send this, it's a far-fetched hope, that's why they call it Project Hail Mary, to send this crew of astronauts to try to intercept the situation. And he gets chosen as one of them, even though he's just a teacher now, but because of his previous background, he gets chosen. And so he wakes up in this spaceship, and he doesn't remember like why he's there, like even that he doesn't remember any of that. But he's like the sole survivor in this spaceship. And I don't think it says on the back. Yeah, it doesn't. So okay, so it says, with the clock ticking down and the nearest human being light years away, he's got to do it all alone. Or does he? So I don't want to say, but there's a big part of this book that happens that everybody really seems to love that on audio. And I think it was really clever how they did it on audio. I really liked this other part of the book. I thought it was really, I don't know, kind of endearing, and added some lightheartedness to the book. My criticism of the book is it was just a little too heavy on the science for me. Unlike the Blake Crouch books, and even Blake Crouch's other books were not this science heavy. This was a little heavy on the science for me. And there is some humor in it. The teacher, he has a good sense of humor. It's told in first person from his perspective. So he makes jokes and stuff. But yeah, a little heavy on the science. It's narrated by Ray Porter, who's a pretty famous narrator. And I've heard great things about him narrating this book. But I didn't know it was the same narrator. When I started listening to it, I said, I recognize that voice. That he narrated a book that I love, that I listened to probably close to 10 years ago now, called 14 by Peter Clines. It's another sci-fi book. Really, really good book. But I recognized his voice immediately from 14, and I looked it up, and yeah, he narrated that. He narrates a lot of books, and he's also an actor, I believe. But I guess a little plug for 14 and Peter Klein's right there. It's humorous with the main character. Like, I don't know. I like that one part that I can't really talk about, and I did like the ending. I thought it had a nice ending. I have 2 more Andy Weir books on my shelf, The Martian and Artemis. I will get to reading those eventually, but I think I need a little break. My brain needs a little break right now from being a little heavy on the science. So anyway, overall, I thought this was going to be a 5-star read / listen, but it ended up being a 3.75 for me. So my lowest rating so far. I gave it a 4.25 for characters, a 4 for the plot story, 3.5 for readability, and overall 3.75. Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. Maybe that's an ignorant thing to say, that there was a little too heavy on the science, but it's kind of was my only drawback with the third 3-Body Problem too. Another sci-fi book. But I'm glad that I experienced it, and I'm going to go watch the movie with some family, and I think the movie will be dumbed down a little bit more for, the movie audience, and so I'm hoping it will be at least. Okay, so I have 2 more books that I read. Bear with me here. The next one, and these are both thrillers. The next one is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. I did this paperback and audio. This was published by Hachette Book Group. It is a beach read mystery. That's what I'm calling it. I just said it was a thriller. I'd call it more of like a cozy beach read mystery. Came out in 2018, $2 at Goodwill, free through Libby to listen to. 453 pages or 12 hours on audio at 1.0 speed, which I usually listen anywhere from 1.5 to 2. I think 1.7 was what I did this at. I started it on February 21st and I finished it on the 24th. So this is basically about this couple's gonna get married on Nantucket Island, which is like a fancy, prestigious, very wealthy island off of, I think, Massachusetts. And the day before the wedding, the bridesmaid is found dead. And so you're trying to figure out, it's like a whodunit. Did she die? How'd she die? And if it was unnatural, was someone at the wedding involved? And so then you start to uncover all of the little secrets that all of the guests in attendance have. And it just ended up being like a lot of rich people drama. And by that, I mean, this was just okay. I was kind of just over all the rich people drama. And by the end, I was just like, I'm ready to be done with this. Like, you can only do that, talk about the same first world problems so many times, and I just really don't care. But yeah, and like the way that the characters would talk about these really rich, prestigious, out of touch characters, and they talk about normal people like the salt of the earth in like a really condescending way. And I have heard people say that in a condescending way, and so I thought that was kind of funny, but also like annoying for us working class people. It wasn't very exciting. It was anticlimactic. Yeah, the ending was really anticlimactic. And I just didn't really care about the characters or connect with them. So this was my worst read of the month. This was a 2.5. I am going to unhaul it. It was my first Ellen Hildebrand books. She writes a lot of books that take place on Nantucket. And I don't know that I would read another one. I have way too many other books that are more my genre, I would say. So, yeah, it was, a lot of people love this book, and there's a Netflix series with Nicole Kidman, but it wasn't for me. 2.5 stars overall down the board for characters, plot story, readability, and overall. Yeah. I'm going to unhaul it. I'm going to throw it in my unhaul book box right now because I'm working on rearranging my library, and I have probably 60 books that I'm unhauling, and so I will be sharing those with you guys at some point here. And actually, I have 2 more books because one of them was only on audio, and that is Say Cheese and Die. That is a Goosebumps book. I have the physical one here somewhere from when I was a kid, but I guess it's not as easily accessible as I thought it was. So I just listened to the audiobook with my kids and we really enjoyed it. It's by R.L. Stine. It's a children's fiction / horror. Came out in 1992. The book itself is 144 pages. We just listened to the audio, which was 3 hours. Was it 3 hours? On the speed we did it, it was 3 hours. So might have been like a 5-hour audio. I don't know. But it was free through Libby. My Libby has a bunch of the Goosebumps books on audio, so we're definitely going down that road now. Started it on the 21st, and we finished it on the 27th. So basically, this book is about this kid finds this old camera in this abandoned house, and he takes pictures with it. It's a Polaroid, and the pictures come out. He doesn't know if they show bad things that end up happening in the future. So he doesn't know if the taking a picture causes that bad thing to happen or if it just predicts the future, bad things that are going to happen in the future, if that makes sense. Like, he takes a picture of his dad's new car and the Polaroid comes out with the car totaled, and then his dad totals the car. So it's, did the camera taking the picture cause the car to be totaled, or was it just predicting the future of a bad situation? So it was actually a cool premise. It was an interesting premise. Obviously I think I would have enjoyed it more as a kid than I did listening to it as an adult, but my 8-year-old daughter really enjoyed it. My 6-year-old, almost 7, she was a little like bored with it. But my 8-year-old really loved it. She likes like scary stuff and thriller stuff like that. She loves Are You Afraid of the Dark? We're rewatching that right now, which I loved that show as a kid. But yeah, we really enjoyed it together. And then we want to listen to more Goosebumps. I think there's a regular Goosebumps sequel, I think, called Say Cheese and Die Again. But I'm not sure. I'm trying to go back in my memory. We found on Libby the Horrorland version of it. Did I write down what that was called? Because so there was like an offset series of Goosebumps called Horrorland, and I think they all took place at Horrorland theme park. I'm trying to remember, like 30 years ago. And we started to listen to that one. We haven't finished it yet, but it's like does not take place where the first one left off, which was on a cliffhanger. It's kind of a different story, so anyway, I don't know. I think there might be a sequel that might pick up where this one left off in the original Goosebumps series. Yeah, it really brought me back to my childhood. It was one of many Goosebumps books I loved. Goosebumps like really kind of started my love for reading. I had a ton of them and they're all in a box right now, and now I want to get them all back out and display them on my shelf. Because it was such a big part of my childhood and, you know, got me into reading thrillers and horror books and all that stuff. So I gave it a 3 just because it was a kid's story, and also the narrator was kind of bland. But I would have rated it higher. I gave it as a kid, I gave it a 4.0 for readability. Characters were pretty one-dimensional. I gave them a 2.5, plot story 3.5, and then an overall 3. Like I said, that's coming from an adult perspective. But yeah, I thought it was fun. Brought me back. Okay, the last book I have to talk about this month is a Lisa Jewell book, and it is called None of This Is True. And so this is one I've been wanting to read for a while. I read it, I have the hardcover, but I ended up only doing it on audio, just listening to it. It went by pretty quick and I didn't even have time to pick up the book. So, because I started on the 25th and I finished it on the 27th, 2-day span. This is published by Simon & Schuster Inc. It's a thriller and it came out in 2023. Paid $8 for this used, and then I listened to it free through Libby. So this is about, it takes place in Great Britain, and it's about these 2 ladies meet on their birthday at a birthday dinner. One of them is a podcaster who does stories about like empowering stories about women who have changed their lives and overcome hardships for the better. So she's famous for that. She bumps into this other gal who has the same birthday, and the gal says, we should do a podcast. I have a story to tell, but my story is more about like I'm in a bad situation and I'm plan on going out of it. And the podcaster's like, yeah, that sounds interesting, let's do it. And so they start meeting to do these podcasts. And I guess the podcaster really didn't know this interviewee very well. And some weird things start to happen. And stories from her past are pretty weird and disturbing. Stories that she's telling from her past in the podcast. So everyone says that this is a really good book to do on audio because it has that podcast element, but I did want more of the podcast element. It actually was not a big percentage of the book. I wanted more of that. A lot of it takes place in present time, like in between recordings of the podcast, but it is mixed media. It has several narrators in the audio, and it has sound effects, which actually can go either way in an audiobook. Sometimes I like them, like a creaking door or something, but sometimes they can be kind of cheesy. And so this actually also had a mixed media element of a Netflix show. And whenever they would play the music for that, like the intro music, I thought it was cheesy. I didn't like that. And actually, like kind of glancing along in my book, there was some stuff that they left out in the audio that they would say in the book. Like they would say, for the Netflix scene, there's like a chair sitting there in a dark room, and it didn't say that in the audio. And I would have, if it's unabridged, that should be in the audio. But anyway, I do feel like the audio did add to it overall, but just a little too much at times. So I thought this was good, but it wasn't outstanding, and I'm actually thinking of unhauling it just because my library, I have a lot of books here and I want to fill it. As I go through and read books, I want to try to only keep ones that I really love. So this is my second Lisa Jewell book after Then She Was Gone. I read that like a year and a half ago. I do have more of her books that I will read, but I had really high hopes for this one, and it was just kind of mid for me. I gave it a 3.75 overall. 3.5 for characters, 3.75 for plot story, a 4 for readability, primarily because of the full cast and the audio. And yeah, 3.75. Just, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't outstanding. And I had some outstanding reads this month between Home and Pines and The Great Alone. Like, it was really hard to live up to those. And also I read that coming off of The Perfect Couple, which was my least favorite book of the month. So anyway, if you're still with me, thank you so much for joining me. I love talking to you about what I read and continuing the conversation in the comments. So please comment down below if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts are on them. Again, a little plug to check out Ben Young and his books, and maybe get to meet Cowboy through the book. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great reading month, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.